A misty morning in Zhangjiajie. On a misty morning in southern China, a lone traveler stood quietly beneath the pale white sky of Zhangjiajie, gazing up at towering stone pillars that rose from the valley floor, as if trying to shoulder the very clouds. High above, the wind howled and the clouds streamed past like an upside-down river, creating a scene that seemed born not of the real world, but of an ancient dream or an ink-wash painting. Zhangjiajie is often called the Pandora of Earth, the place that inspired Avatar's floating mountains. But to this traveler, it was more than a cinematic backdrop. It was a living, ancient, surreal world where one could momentarily forget one's human identity and become a dreamwalker amid a forest of stone that had stood for thousands of years. Heaven's Gate and the Thousand Steps. The journey began with the longest cable car ride in the world, over 7 kilometers gliding silently above dense valleys, cliffs, and thick fog like condensed milk. The small cabin carried the traveler to Tianmen Mountain, home of the famed Heaven's Gate, a naturally formed hole through a limestone cliff, soaring high like a celestial doorway carved into the sky. Beneath this gate lies 999 stone steps winding upward like a divine staircase, demanding physical strength and spiritual endurance. Every step posed a challenge, not just to the body, but to the soul. Yet the traveler climbed on, accompanied by the howling wind and the whispering leaves, in a realm so ethereal it seemed to belong to the immortals. And upon reaching the summit, where heaven and earth seemed to touch, the traveler felt their heart grow light, as if shedding the burdens of the world below. The Stone Forest, Nature's Grand Symphony. From Tianmen, the journey continued by vehicle through mountainous terrain toward Zhangjiajie National Forest Park. Famous for its towering sandstone pillars, like ancient uninhabited castles, unlike any mountain range seen before, there were no vast summits or quiet valleys here. Instead, thousands of vertical stone columns jutted straight from the earth, reaching defiantly toward the sky, solitary, majestic, and mysterious. The traveler stood silently before the southern sky column, the soul of Zhangjiajie, now famously known as the Avatar Hallelujah Mountain. But in that vast space, no movie reference was needed. Before nature, imagination fell silent. Reality here was overwhelming enough to stir the deepest corners of the heart. Wind whispered through the mountain cracks like voices from the past. Clouds clung to cliffs and then vanished like smoke. Amid that fog, the traveler realized that beauty lies not in brilliance, but in silence and permanence. There was something ancient in that scene, as if nature spoke a language only those who truly listen could understand. Walking in the void, the glass bridge of Yuntai. If the stone forest was a symphony of mystery, then the Yuntai glass bridge was a prelude to courage. The traveler hesitated more than once before stepping onto the transparent glass span stretching between two cliffs, where only 300 meters of air separated their heels from the abyss below. Each step was a challenge, each downward glance a conversation with primal fear. But once accustomed to the height, the wind brushing the face, and the thumping heartbeat, the traveler began to see the world anew from this vantage point. The sky stretched wide, the layered mountains below glowed with watercolor hues under the afternoon sun, and in that space, in that very space, human beings, though small, became grand simply for daring to cross their boundaries. Warmth of the village and the taste of leaf wine. On a windless night at the mountain's foot, the traveler was invited to dine with the Zhangjiajie family, an ethnic group native to the region, in a humble wooden house. Amid crackling firelight and hearty laughter in the cold mountain air, warmth emerged in a way no words could ever describe. The meal consisted only of corn porridge, wild greens, smoked meat, and leaf-fermented wine, but its flavor was rich with sincerity. No one said much, but the grandmother's aged eyes, the shy smile of a child, and the slow, firm nod of the houseman spoke a quiet welcome. In that moment, the traveler was no longer a stranger from afar. They became part of the mountains, part of the meal, part of the silent story told through glances and gestures. Zhangjiajie was not a destination. It was a prelude, an overture to a majestic epic of China's mountains. A place where beauty lives not in splendor, but in depth, as deep as the cloud-filled valleys, and as profound as the heart of the traveler looking up at a fairy tale sky. A new day in Wangshen. The traveler arrived at Wangshen on another foggy morning. The city below was still asleep, shrouded in wisps of early mist. Yet atop the peaks, amid the endless layers of white cloud, was another world, serene, separate, and profoundly still. Wangshen doesn't greet you with visual fireworks. Instead, it reveals itself layer by layer, like the slow rise of an ancient theater curtain. Rocks piled upon rocks, cliffs connecting endlessly, forming a maze of stone, mist, and pine branches twisting skyward. Here, beauty lies not in brilliance but endurance, shaped by millions of years of patience. It's a realm only the quiet-hearted can truly see. The stone path led the traveler higher. No more city sounds, no more footsteps, wind through pine needles, cliffs sighing in the mist, and the steady rhythm of a beating heart. Each step chipped away a little more of the clamor below. Beneath the traveler, a sea of cloud. Above, the pale blue sky emerging through the fog. At the summit, standing on a broad rocky terrace, the traveler was stunned by the sea of clouds. There was no other name for it. It was a sea. Just as the ancients said, a vast ocean woven from vapor, wind, and the breath of heaven and earth. Mountain peaks poked through like lonely islands, and the clouds danced around the rocks like the white robes of celestial dancers, slow, graceful, not meant for the eye but for the soul, free from the body. There, the traveler took no photos, wrote no words. They sat on a stone slab, quietly watching the drifting clouds like fleeting thoughts. Something dissolved within them, perhaps a nameless sorrow, or a longing never spoken aloud. The landscape needed no validation, it only needed to exist. And that was enough. Ancient pines clinging to cliff edges silenced all words. Not lush like southern forests, nor proud like northern pines. They stood still and solitary, like meditating sages unmoved by time. Especially the welcoming pine, with its arm-like branch stretched outward. As if waiting and waiting for whom? Perhaps no one, or perhaps for anyone who ever longed to stand where the world is reduced to wind, stone, and heart. The whisper of trees and the paradox of stones. The traveler reached out and gently touched the rough bark of an old pine. To be here today, that weathered surface had withstood countless winds, endured countless rains, and survived many winters. No need to boast, no need to speak, it just existed. And for those who had weathered life's storms, that presence alone could be a deeper comfort than words ever offered. Upon leaving the summit of Guangming Peak, the traveler paused at a precarious cliff ledge where the flying rock rested, a massive boulder that seemed to have fallen straight from the sky. No one knew why it remained there. With no visible support, no logical reason not to tumble, it still held fast, an inexplicable defiance of gravity and sense. It reminded the traveler of the human heart, often fragile, often unreasonable, yet, it continues. It lives. It loves. It dreams. Wangshen is never in a hurry. The mountain neither invites nor rejects. It simply is, waiting for those quiet enough to understand that beauty lies not in what dazzles the eyes, but in what endures in silence. As the traveler descended the final stone steps, the setting sun began to tint the cliffs red, and a thin cloud drifted up from the depths like a whispered farewell. In the distance, the city emerged, blurry, like a fading memory, on the boundary between nature and civilization. The traveler turned back one last time, not to take a photo but to carry in their heart something the hands could never hold, a quiet emotion. To them, Wangshen was not a destination, it was a pause long enough to cleanse the dust, to release unnamed burdens, and to continue onward, not just along mountain paths, but through the journey of life itself. Where even voices fall silent, Ma Mountain. No one knows the exact moment when humans stop speaking. Perhaps it's when beauty becomes too vast for words, or when the voice within shrinks before the majestic presence of nature. But a place exists that compels even the noisiest souls to bow their heads, breathe softly, and listen with their hearts. That place is Mount Ma. The traveler arrived in early autumn. The trees still clung to the last traces of green, while hints of golden leaves crept gently across the mountainsides. The mist here wasn't dense like Wangshen's, it floated lightly, like a sheer veil draped over a mountain maiden's hair. No seas of clouds, no towering stone pillars, but what Ma had was something the traveler had long been searching for: absolute stillness. The path to Golden Summit wasn't merely a winding trail through dense forest. It was a journey inward. The stone steps weren't steep, but they were long, so long it seemed they were designed to help people slowly forget the weight they carried within. No one spoke much on the way up. Those behind followed quietly after those ahead. Every footstep echoed like a soft prayer. The higher they climbed, the colder the wind, the sparser the trees, and the further behind all noise seemed to fall, like an old memory no longer needed. The traveler stopped beneath a grove of ancient pines at one bend in the path. Nestled in a valley was a tiny temple, its tiled roof faded, walls streaked with moss, yet solid and unmoved like the mountains around it. A monk was sweeping leaves. He did not look up, did not speak. His bamboo broom swished rhythmically over dry leaves, creating a sound resonating through the forest like a silent, ancient, wordless chant. The traveler stood for a long while, then moved on without a word. No questions needed asking, for perhaps everything worth knowing had already been said. In silence, Golden Summit, a breath between worlds. Golden Summit revealed itself through layers of stone steps, a broad platform that embraced the sky. At its center stood a massive bronze statue of the four-faced Buddha, solemn and radiant, glowing softly in the mist. The traveler wasn't a believer, but their heart stirred in the presence of that figure. There was something deeply human in the Buddha's serene expression, not preaching, judging, or praising, simply being. Like the mountain, like the clouds, like the wind. Far off, wisps of cloud drifted across the face of the sun. Pale golden light bathed the stone ground, casting long shadows of the statue stretching like time. The traveler sat down, back resting against a cold slab of rock, eyes gazing into the vast unknown ahead. That feeling, that indescribable sensation, was like the final note of a symphony lingering in the air, then fading into silence. Nothing more, nothing needed. Ma does not dazzle, it liberates. Ma does not overwhelm, it does not seek to be conquered. It simply exists, and in doing so, it allows those who enter to let go, to release sorrow, pride, ambition, and all the unanswered questions. By the time the traveler left Golden Summit, dusk had fallen. Golden dots of light from scattered temples twinkled along the mountainside like sacred fireflies guiding the way through the dark. The traveler strolled, very slowly, as if reluctant to leave the rare peace they had just found. Each step felt like a deep breath, a farewell. The city reappeared at the mountain's base, smeared with headlights and the hurried breath of daily life. The traveler glanced back one last time. The dark outline of the hill loomed against the deep violet sky, silent, calm, and forever unclaimed. Some places don't need to be remembered, because they are memory itself. Ma, where stillness speaks. Mount Ma is not radiant. It doesn't aspire to be a paradise, because it is a realm of stillness. For those who understand that sometimes, silence is the only way to hear oneself. Some places don't call out with grandeur, nor do they persuade with cultural depth or spiritual heritage. They conquer people with just one thing, the pure beauty of nature. No embellishment, no metaphor, no need for philosophy or faith, just beauty. A beauty so profound that it silences the soul. Like standing before something sacred that defies explanation. That is Zhangjiajie. Zhangjiajie, a symphony of water and color. The traveler arrived in Zhangjiajie in autumn, when the Tibetan forests became a living painting. Even on the winding roads into the valley, the slopes burst into flame with reds, oranges, golds, and greens. No palette could replicate the spontaneous brilliance of nature's hand. Each leaf was a stroke of magic, and every forest patch was a masterpiece carefully arranged by an unseen artist. Zhangjiajie, the valley of 9 Tibetan villages, lies in northern Sichuan. Nestled in a secret valley, cradled by mountains for centuries. But the traveler had not come for the villages. The lakes were what they came to see, and could never forget. But these lakes are more than lakes. They are still and clear. Giant mirrors hidden deep within the forest. The water was so pure that it felt like there was no water, just an open portal reflecting the sky and clouds. Some lakes glowed turquoise, others sapphire, and some shimmered golden like honeyed wine. When the wind brushed across the surface, it whispered, creating ripples so soft they seemed to apologize for disturbing the peace. The traveler paused at Five Flower Lake, the jewel of the valley. From above, it looked surreal, blue, green, yellow, and aquamarine swirled together like ribbons across the water. The lake bed revealed ancient tree branches, long sunken, covered in moss, but perfectly preserved as if time here had stopped, not to decay, but to showcase beauty forever. Silence reigned, only the distant call of birds echoed across the ridges. No one spoke to the traveler. No one needed to. Beauty was the language at that moment, and silence was the only way to understand it. Pearl Shoal Falls, water that flies. The trail continued to Pearl Shoal Waterfall, where cascades of water tumbled in layers, frothing white like silver threads unraveling from the sky. The sound wasn't thunderous, but melodic, like a song from somewhere far away. The traveler tilted their head and watched the water, not falling, but flying, lifted and scattered by the wind like glittering diamonds in the air. Zhangjiajie was like a fairy tale, not of dragons or spirits, but of light and color, of leaves and reflections, of every small, perfect detail that nature had composed without human touch. The traveler wandered along a wooden path through the woods, where crimson maple trees clung to the last light of autumn. Tibetan children laughed nearby, their voices clear as spring water. An older woman in a patterned skirt carried firewood on her back. Strolling, without hurry, no one tried to stand out, yet all were part of the same painting. And the traveler realized, at that moment, they too had become a color on nature's palette, quiet, small, but real. Before leaving, they looked back at Panda Lake one last time. Its surface reflected a lavender sky, while the wind sighed gently through the distant pines. No goodbye was spoken, just a glance, a heartbeat, and a soft space in the memory to hold it all. Zhangjiajie does not strike like a storm. It soothes like a wisp of smoke at dusk. It's not a place to conquer, but a place to surrender to, before a beauty that asks for no reason. No explanation, just open eyes, open heart, and stillness. Kunlun, where legends begin. If the mountains before had shown the traveler the visible beauty of nature, its colors, light, clouds, and waters, then the next chapter opened to something entirely different. A mountain that existed not only in reality but in legend, memory, and myth. A place whose name felt ancient, mysterious, and sacred. Kunlun. Unlike the liveliness of Zhangjiajie or the gentle grace of Mount Eme, the path to Kunlun was cold, harsh, and remote. The traveler approached from the northwest, crossing the Qinghai Tibet Plateau, where the air grew thin and the wind bit like a blade. Yet within that dry, bitter chill rose something powerful, a quiet reverence, as if stepping into a place not meant for mortals. Kunlun does not have a single peak like Fuji or Everest. It is a colossal mountain range, stretching over 2.500 kilometers across Tibet, Xinjiang, and Qinghai, woven into the myths of China for millennia. To the ancient Chinese, Kunlun was the home of deities, the axis mundi, the cosmic center where heaven and earth met, where mortals could cross into the divine. The traveler knew this was not a place to sightsee in any conventional sense. There were no shimmering lakes, no colorful forests. Here, beauty did not reveal itself, it hid. It was the beauty of snow, stone, brutal winds, and silent giants, a beauty that demands awe, not because it dazzles, but because it endures. In the realm of the Queen Mother of the West, along an ancient Tibetan trade route, the traveler stopped in a secluded valley, home to a shrine for Shiwangri, the Queen Mother of the West. Unlike compassionate Guanyin or fierce Lei Gong, Shi Huangmu is a dual force, sovereign of the heavens and guardian of life and death. Legend says only those with immense karmic destiny can reach her celestial realm. Hidden in the snowy silence of Kunlun's deepest heart, the traveler didn't believe themselves mainly destined, but standing there. In the vast cold, between sheer cliffs and eternal snow, they felt small and profoundly significant. All at once, as sunset arrived, Kunlun shifted. There were no blazing oranges, no dreamy pinks, only streaks of gray-violet washing across the snow. Like ancient gods standing guard, the last light rays carved shadows among upright stone pillars. The wind died, and a profound silence enveloped everything. Pearl Shoal Falls, water that flies. The trail continued to Pearl Shoal Waterfall, where cascades of water tumbled in layers, frothing white like silver threads unraveling from the sky. The sound wasn't thunderous, but melodic, like a song from somewhere far away. The traveler tilted their head and watched the water, not falling, but flying, lifted and scattered by the wind like glittering diamonds in the air. Zhangjiajie was like a fairy tale, not of dragons or spirits, but of light and color, of leaves and reflections, of every small, perfect detail that nature had composed without human touch. The traveler wandered along a wooden path through the woods, where crimson maple trees clung to the last light of autumn. Tibetan children laughed nearby, their voices clear as spring water. An older woman in a patterned skirt carried firewood on her back. Strolling, without hurry, no one tried to stand out. Yet all were part of the same painting, and the traveler realized, at that moment, they too had become a color on nature's palette, quiet, small, but real. Before leaving, they looked back at Panda Lake one last time. Its surface reflected a lavender sky, while the wind sighed gently through the distant pines. No goodbye was spoken, just a glance, a heartbeat, and a soft space in the memory to hold it all. Zhangjiajie does not strike like a storm. It soothes like a wisp of smoke at dusk. It's not a place to conquer, but a place to surrender to, before a beauty that asks for no reason. No explanation, just open eyes, open heart, and stillness. Kunlun, where legends begin. If the mountains before had shown the traveler the visible beauty of nature, its colors, light, clouds, and waters, then the next chapter opened to something entirely different. A mountain that existed not only in reality but in legend, memory, and myth. A place whose name felt ancient, mysterious, and sacred. Kunlun. Unlike the liveliness of Zhangjiajie or the gentle grace of Mount Eme, the path to Kunlun was cold, harsh, and remote. The traveler approached from the northwest, crossing the Qinghai Tibet Plateau, where the air grew thin and the wind bit like a blade. Yet within that dry, bitter chill rose something powerful, a quiet reverence, as if stepping into a place not meant for mortals. Kunlun does not have a single peak like Fuji or Everest. It is a colossal mountain range, stretching over 2.500 kilometers across Tibet, Xinjiang, and Qinghai, woven into the myths of China for millennia. To the ancient Chinese, Kunlun was the home of deities, the axis mundi, the cosmic center where heaven and earth met, where mortals could cross into the divine. The traveler knew this was not a place to sightsee in any conventional sense. There were no shimmering lakes, no colorful forests. Here, beauty did not reveal itself, it hid. It was the beauty of snow, stone, brutal winds, and silent giants, a beauty that demands awe, not because it dazzles, but because it endures. In the realm of the Queen Mother of the West, along an ancient Tibetan trade route, the travelers stopped in a secluded valley, home to a shrine for Shiwangmu, the Queen Mother of the West. Unlike compassionate Guanyin or fierce Lei Gong, Shiwangmu is a dual force, sovereign of the heavens and guardian of life and death. Legend says only those with immense karmic destiny can reach her celestial realm. Hidden in the snowy silence of Kunlun's deepest heart, the traveler didn't believe themselves mainly destined, but standing there. In the vast cold, between sheer cliffs and eternal snow, they felt small and profoundly significant. All at once, as sunset arrived, Kunlun shifted. There were no blazing oranges, no dreamy pinks, only streaks of gray-violet washing across the snow. Like ancient gods standing guard, the last light rays carved shadows among upright stone pillars. The wind died, and a profound silence enveloped everything. When the sky draws close, night fell quickly, and the weather was bitterly cold. Wrapped tightly in their cloak, the traveler curled up beside a fire in a small tent. Outside, the temperature had dropped far below freezing. Yet from the gap in the tent door, a sliver of sky revealed itself, a sky so black and filled with stars. It felt as though the traveler had reached the edge of the cosmos. There, with no electricity, signal, or sound, the traveler understood. Some places are not for tourism, not for stories. Some places exist only to be felt, respected, and to remind us how vast and sacred the world truly is. Kunlun is not for everyone. It does not cater to comfort or wonder, but for those with enough patience, enough curiosity, and enough silence in their soul. Kunlun becomes not just a mountain, but a gateway to the eternal. From the heights of Kunlun to the floating forests of Wulingyuan. From the mythical heights of Kunlun, the traveler turned eastward, crossing barren lands and sweeping plains, toward a place often called the roof of southern China, where white clouds linger and heaven and earth embrace across all seasons. Leaving behind Kunlun, where even the wind carried the weight of legend, the traveler's path now led southeast, to a land where nature was no longer a stern colossus, but something ethereal, weightless, like stepping into a brush painting still in progress. This place was Wulingyuan, in Zhangjiajie, Hunan Province, recognized by UNESCO as a World Natural Heritage Site. If there is anywhere on Earth that makes one believe in the existence of celestial realms, Wulingyuan may be the strongest contender. From the first gaze upward, the traveler no longer saw mountains in the traditional sense. Instead, thousands of towering sandstone pillars pierced the skies like giant spears rising from the earth. Thrusting through the clouds, each stone column, some hundreds of meters tall, was draped in moss, wrapped in a veil of mist as fine as silk. The effect was that of a floating forest suspended in the heavens. No word captured it better than otherworldly. As the travelers stepped onto a swaying suspension bridge between cliffs, their palms sweated at the void below, but their eyes were lost in the unimaginable beauty ahead. This surreal landscape famously inspired the floating Hallelujah Mountains in James Cameron's Avatar. And truly, no cinematic illusion could rival the sensation of standing atop Tianzi Mountain, gazing down as clouds rolled like invisible oceans beneath. At that moment, the traveler could no longer distinguish between the earth and the sky. Boundaries dissolved. It felt as if they were soaring among spirits. the hidden rivers and whispering stones. But Wuling Yuan's magic lay not just in its peaks. The traveler's journey led them through ancient forests, over bubbling brooks, and into sudden clearings, where waterfalls cascaded from hundreds of meters high cliffs, streaming down like silk ribbons and echoing with sounds like a zither's gentle song. Under one such fall, the traveler lifted their face, letting the icy drops splash upon them, not out of heat or fatigue, but simply a desire to touch something real in a place so dreamlike it seemed untouchable. Among the many unforgettable experiences was the Bailong elevator, the highest outdoor elevator in the world. As the glass capsule began ascent, the traveler felt their heart rise. Mountains fell away below, trees shrank to green dots, and Zhangjiajie unfolded in full, dazzling panorama, a living dream made visible. Yet Wuling Yuan was not just scenery. Hidden within its cliffs lived the Tujia people, an ethnic minority with roots deep in the mountains. The traveler rested in an ancient village, where stone chimes echoed softly. They shared a humble meal of sticky rice, stream fish, wild bamboo shoots, and fragrant corn liquor. At night, beside the crimson hearth, an old storyteller spoke of mountain spirits and stone columns that whispered to the moon, of shadowy figures drifting through mist, forever just out of reach. What set Wuling Yuan apart was this: its beauty was so overwhelming it escaped all measure. It silenced the urge to capture, post, or proclaim. The traveler didn't want to take pictures. They tried to slow down, breathe softer, and be, as if even time here had softened, flowing gently like the clouds. On one misty morning, standing at the Heavens Bridge lookout, the traveler saw a single stone pillar rising from the sea of fog, surrounded by trees below and blue sky above. In that moment, they were no longer just a visitor. They were part of the landscape. They belonged to the east, where mountains speak in verse, Wangshen. But the journey was not yet over. After days lost in the weightless magic of Zhangjiajie, the traveler turned southward once more, toward a mountain known not only for its striking form, but for its deep bond with Chinese culture, poetry, and classical painting. After the misty wonderlands of Wuling Yuan, where gravity seemed optional and dreams walked beside daylight, the traveler made their way east to a land where the mountain is not merely a scene, but a poet, a subject, a soul of Chinese identity. Wangshen, the Yellow Mountains. Located in Anhui Province, Wangshen has long been hailed as one of China's most beautiful mountains. And it has inspired poets, painters, and philosophers for millennia. With over 70 peaks, 36 principal summits, Wangshen is a symphony of stone, cloud, pine, and snow, composed in drifting layers across the heavens, where pines bow and clouds flow. The traveler arrived at the mountain's base on a cool autumn morning. Unlike the bustle of other tourist sites, Wangshen exuded a quiet dignity, like an old scholar in flowing robes, stepping out of the Tang dynasty. The stone path rose steeply, winding through ancient pine forests where leaves rustled and wind whispered, making the traveler's footsteps feel almost weightless. Wangshen's legendary fame rests on its four wonders: strange pines, fantastical rocks, seas of clouds, and hot springs. Each is more than a feature of the land, they are characters, alive with spirit and presence. As the trail climbed higher, the famed pines revealed themselves, clinging to cliffs with stubborn grace, roots coiled into stone, branches reaching outward like brushstrokes. The traveler paused beneath the welcoming pine, Wangshen's iconic tree, its trunk tilted toward the path, as if extending an arm to greet a distant friend. In that gesture, something wordless stirred, a warmth, a kinship among the silent peaks. walking the sky, witnessing the light. By the time the traveler reached the bright summit peak, the world had changed. Mists had thickened, not oppressive, but flowing like a white river between peaks. Looking down from above, the mountains jutted like islands in a cloud. It felt as though the traveler was walking among the heavens. And then, something miraculous happened. The sun broke through. Beams of golden light pierced the fog, illuminating the sky. The traveler's shadow stretched onto the clouds, ringed by a shimmering halo, a rare phenomenon known as Buddha's light, Fat Quang. They dared not move or breathe momentarily, afraid to disturb a miracle they had stumbled into. Wangshen is also a mountain of memory, echoing with the footsteps of Li Bai, Su Dongpo, Wang Wei, and countless others who stood on these very ridges, watching clouds drift, composing verses that still stir hearts centuries later. And though the traveler was no poet, they too felt something soft stir within, a whisper of words unspoken, longing to be written. The quietest nights, the deepest silence. As night fell, Wangshen did not vanish into shadow. It donned a deep twilight blue. Like a storybook painting, the traveler stayed overnight at a simple inn perched among the peaks. There was no Wi-Fi, traffic, or voice, but the hush of the wind and the steady rhythm of a quiet heart. The mountains breathed, the stars blinked, and the traveler listened. Wangshen does not dazzle in obvious ways. It humbles. It persuades gently, with depth, with quiet. It does not shout, but sings, a classical symphony that asks for time, patience, and reverence. To know it fully might take a lifetime, but even a single day among its peaks is enough to remember forever. The final bow, Chomolungma and Mingyue Mountain. As the traveler left Wangshen, they turned back one last time and watched the mountain peaks gradually disappear into the clouds. There were no words of farewell, only a lingering gaze, long and full of reverence. They knew they had left a piece of their soul behind, and carried a piece of Wangshen within. But the journey was not yet over. Next came a mountain not only the tallest in China, but the rooftop of East Asia itself, a place where nature's strength reveals its sublime beauty and the human spirit is tested. Mount Everest, the magnificent Chomolungma. The traveler's path was ascending, both literally and spiritually. After being immersed in the surreal beauty of Wangshen, they now stood before a worthy challenge, to face the roof of the world, where earth and sky embrace. Known in Tibetan by its sacred name Chomolungma, goddess mother of the universe, Everest awaited. Though Everest is often associated with Nepal, its northern face belongs to Tibet, and it was this side the traveler sought. Not to conquer, but to witness, to understand. The road to Everest National Park in Tibet's Tingri County, Shigatse, was no route for the faint of heart. The Tibetan plateau unfolded like a frozen moon, desolate, sacred. Every step toward Chomolungma brought the traveler closer to their physical and spiritual limits, and to the very edge of what it means to exist. The path to the North Base camp wasn't paved with comfort. It was a windy, dusty, and stony road, passing ancient Tibetan villages, yaks trudging along cliff edges, and monasteries perched upon the mountainside, seemingly carved by time. At an altitude of over 5.200 meters, the air grew so thin that every breath became precious. But then, it stood before them, Chomolungma, majestic in the twilight, draped in eternal white, like a flaming torch of ice piercing the heavens. No words could capture that moment. It wasn't mere awe. It was as if one were standing before a living God, resplendent, terrifying, and sacred beyond measure. The traveler felt themselves shrink, not out of fear, but in reverent humility. Small, insignificant, but somehow more real. They stood in silence for hours. The cold wind cut like blades. Yet no one spoke. Climbers, monks, photographers, and wanderers became part of a sacred stillness, as if even one loud breath might shatter the beauty before them. Chomolungma offered no smile, no welcome. It simply stood, eternal since the dawn of time, challenging each heart that dared approach. Why are you here? To worship? Or to conquer? Will you capture me in your lens? Or carve me into your soul? And after hours of silent awe, the traveler understood. They had come to bow, not to the height, but to the purity of nature. Night descended over Everest like a black mirror. No lights, no pollution, just starlight, millions of them, scattered across the sky, and the silhouette of Chomolungma, reflecting the moon's icy glow. Wrapped tightly in warm layers, the traveler stood outside their tent, eyes lifted to the heavens, and for the first time, saw the Milky Way stretch across the sky like a shimmering silver path. They didn't summit the peak. They didn't need to, because the journey to Everest was an inner ascent, not one of technique, but of patience, respect, and a heart deep enough to touch the soul of the earth. When they departed, they only took a few photos and a small stone found by a stream. But they knew, they were forever changed. Everest wasn't just the highest place on Earth, it was the pinnacle of awareness. Where one sees the world, and oneself, with new clarity. As they turned back for the final time, the peak of Chomolungma faded into silver mist. There was no desire left to conquer, only deep gratitude. As if a great teacher had shared its truth. Yet the journey had one more chapter. Mingyue Mountain, the full stop of peace. After traveling through some of China's most awe-inspiring mountains, Zhangjiajie's dream-like spires, Wangshen's poetic silence, Everest's sacred vastness, the traveler longed for a softer rhythm. Not a crescendo, but a gentle refrain. A place not to marvel, but to rest. That place was Mingyue Mountain. Tucked away in Jiangxi province near Ganzhou. Mingyue, or bright moon, was not towering or harsh, but quietly profound, a sanctuary of simplicity, where one need not look up to admire, but bow their heart to feel. The name alone evoked peace. And indeed, the mountain welcomed no crowds, no clamorous vendors, only lush bamboo groves, cool streams, birdsong, and the faint scent of incense from scattered temples cloaked in forest mist. The traveler arrived in the early morning of late autumn. A soft veil of mist cloaked the winding stone paths. The steps led gently toward the Great Hero Hall, home to one of the region's oldest Buddhist institutions. Cool stone underfoot, the only sound was the swish of a monk's robe as he passed. And in that moment, the traveler felt an unfamiliar stillness blossom within. Mingyue Mountain's beauty was not in altitude, but in attitude. Each path, each mossy stone, each ancient tree whispered quiet wisdom. The traveler sat at the edge of tranquil Heart Lake, watching the surface mirror the pale blue sky. A small wooden sign read, "When the mind is calm, the lake is calm. When the lake ripples, the mind is unsettled." These simple words unraveled something inside them. The restless tides of thought began to still. Nearby, the moonlight path wound through sun-dappled bamboo. Legend said Zen Master Dogen meditated here for 49 days, not eating, not sleeping, simply gazing at the moon within. The traveler sat on a flat stone. They did not meditate, did not chase stillness. They sat, breathed, and let the mountain enter their heart. Nothing had changed when they opened their eyes, yet everything had. The landscape was no longer separate. The mountain, the sky, the breeze, it all felt like home. At night, Mingyue Mountain did not glow with artificial light. It slumbered under the moon. As its name foretold, walking beneath the swaying bamboo. The traveler smiled. No more questions, no more checklists, just the comfort of knowing they had found what they were looking for, peace. The next morning, the air was crisp. The traveler packed a few simple belongings and slung their bag over one shoulder. 9 mountains now rested in their memory, each one unique. Yet Mingyue, with its humility and stillness, left the deepest mark. On the ride home, through the window, they watched the forest slowly veil the mountain from view. They closed their eyes, and one by one, memories returned. The twisted pines of Wangshen, the cloud ocean of Wulingyuan, the sacred grandeur of Everest, and now, the moonlit stillness of Mingyue. The journey was over, but their inner voyage had only just begun. Thank you for joining me on this journey across China's most majestic mountains, from the surreal spires of Zhangjiajie, the meditative depths of Wangshen, to the holy summit of Everest and the gentle grace of Mingyue Mountain. Each step told a story, not just of landscapes, but of the soul listening quietly to the voice of the earth. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe so you won't miss the next adventure. And you, yes, you, if you could visit just one of these mountains, which would it be? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear your story. Until next time, in the next film, where beauty isn't just seen, but felt with the whole heart.